Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. We are very excited to be here with you today. My name is Sabrina McCarley, and with me I have Leanne Frick. And today is our part 4 of how are we going to operationalize these October 1st MDS changes. And this webinar today is really a follow-up to a lot of questions that Leanne and I have received and Nara has received, and we want to make sure that we are really addressing the questions as there continues to be changes and continues to need some clarification. And so this is one of the values that we bring to NARA membership. We, as I said, are going to be addressing questions that we received. However, we want to make sure that this webinar is valuable to all of you. And if you have questions that we are not addressing or that you really want to make sure that we address, please put them either in the chat box or in the Q&A, and Leanne and I will be monitoring that and we will get to them. So before we get started, a couple of housekeeping reminders. All attendees are on mute. The handouts were provided in the reminder email, and Christy just put them in the chat as well. Again, if you have any questions for Leanne and I, we are an open book, so please put those in the Q&A or the chat. Any technical questions, those go to Christy. So if you want to put those in the chat button, Christy will address those for you. And we are recording this, and it's going to be emailed out to all registered attendees within 48 hours. And it's going to be also posted on our NARA member portal within 24 hours. So with that comes a great disclosure. So as things keep changing, we wanted to make sure that everyone is aware. We're putting out there the information that we're sharing today is really in good faith. It also is what we know as of today. And so really we want to make sure that you have the latest resources and data, but want to make sure that you're seeking further assistance from, CMS or your MAC, commercial payers, state, national associations, and continue to also watch for new developments regarding this lovely topic of our MDS changes. So today what we are going to be doing is we're going to cover some of these technical issues. That is why we did our disclaimer. We're going to talk about some of the issues as it relates to iKeys and electronic health records, point-and-click care, etc. Also CMS's notice that they put out in regards to the quality measures. We're also going to be addressing some of the most recent errata documents, so as things continue to change, but we're specifically going to be focusing on Section D, so mood, and Section O therapy. We're going to be discussing oxygen therapy, some ping questions, and as it relates to therapy, OSA updates, our good old friend, Section GG, and then open time for questions. So there are some issues, right? This was expected. We all kind of knew there would be some type of an issue with just how big the changes were. iKeys, this is a screenshot. This continues to be the most updated information. There is an issue as it relates to Section GG and the calculation. So this issue has been identified. This is for all of the MDSs from October 1st to today, unfortunately. And so what's happening is when we're submitting them, the value of the HIPs is in the PDPM. It's not calculating correctly in the iKeys as it relates to Section GG. And so what we want to say about that is we know it has made triple check a complete nightmare, right? The HIPs aren't accurate. There's issues with PDPM. You've got to work with your customers to ensure that there's a system, though, that there's a checks and balance, right? We know those will have to be corrected, but there still needs to be the accuracy of the GG coding. So when this does get corrected, what is going to happen is we want to make sure the GG codes that are entered into the MDS, the GG scoring, comes out correctly. So in the next slide, what we also have is, this is just from Point-Click Care, just as an example of the communication that they keep updating all of their customers with in regards to the GG. It also is nice because it has a direct link that can take you right to that iKeys screenshot that we showed. And Leanne and I checked it right before today's webinar, and it's still showing the same, that it's open. There's no updates, but some rose-colored glasses, some happy news. Yesterday, there was a release of the PDPM JAR package. And so what that is going to do is it provides us the specs to update and adjust the OBRA logic that's impacting the GGs. So that is some positive news. We just don't have updates as to what that means and what the next steps are, but there is some good news in the works there. So one of the things too that we knew with the retirement of Section G and the implementation of GG is going to be changes to the quality measures. So on November 6th, CMS did put out this memo. That was a screenshot, and this is just so it's a little bit bigger so that I can read it. So MDS Section G, the functional status replaced with Section GG are functional abilities and goals. So effective October 1st, the MDS Section G and GG, the transition we know significantly had an impact on the specifications of several quality measures. And those measures were the percent of residents who made improvements in function, so short stay measure, the percent of residents whose need for help with activities of daily living has increased, the long stay, percent of residents whose ability to move independently worsen, long stay measure, percent of high risk residents with pressure ulcers, long stay, and the percent of low risk resident who's lose control of their bowel and bladder, long stay. So in order for CMS to address the impact of this G to GG transition, those 5 measures were frozen. So what that means is they're holding them constant in the IKEYS system for the facility level as well as the resident level QM reports and they did that on October 1st. So starting on that first Monday following, the IKEYS started processing any qualifying records that were submitted after 10/1 that had a target date that was prior to 10/1 in order to provide the updated measure data that's based on the newer submissions. They also want to note that the MDS records the target date on or after 10/1 will not be included in the impacted measures. And as a result, if the requested report period, so the begin range and that end range in the MDS 3.0 QM reports includes the dates on or after 10/1, then there would be expected decrease in the numerator and denominator just due to the MDS G to GG transition. So we wanted everyone to be aware of that. So we have had a lot of questions about these errata documents, and what we have done is provided you the direct link that can get you to this page. Now, I want to say a couple of things as it relates, excuse me, to this errata document. First and foremost, it is so important that we are keeping up to date on all these changes. And so when we see this, what we have to understand is, well, what we understand from people is that there's certain IT like blockage, and I'm not an IT person, so I apologize, but there's certain systems like the catch are in there, or it's kind of just freezing the website where it's taking you to the final version of the REI manual, but it's not necessarily refreshing with the errata. So I hope that makes sense. But there is an updated errata, and this is the announcement that we're going to go over from 10/23/23. Now, what is important when you go to that link is you're going to be able to see at the bottom that we've highlighted here that MDS 3.0, what you're going to see is the version 1.18.11R. So the R means the revised, the errata, the 2.0, and the date of October 20th, 2023. Now, what is important here is that this is the second version. So you'll see errata version 2. But in here, if you go to the issues 4 to 21 were added. So you'll see that. On the next slide, I just want to point out a couple of things with this. The change manual pages are marked with the footer of October 2023 R. Now, why this is important is that if you have an MDS coordinator, that what they did is they saved, they printed out, they have marked that final version of the REI manual. There will be discrepancies if they do not have also the updated errata pages. And so that's could cause some confusion. So whenever there's kind of these questions that we're going to be going over come up and your MDS coordinators or your customers are taking you back to the final version of the REI manual, it's important that you show them the updates and how to get to the errata.
So Sabrina, I'll just clarify what Sabrina was referencing earlier is we've had some scenarios where people have tried to go to that page that we showed you where the REI manual is, and it's not showing the most recent information. And so there's something on your computer called cache, And again, we are not technical people, but but that is basically where it stores when you go to visit sites. And so if it is kind of stuck in that, you may get an older version of the page. And so we're not here to tell you how to necessarily get that fixed, but I would contact your IT people if that appears to be your issue, because that has been something that has shown up with some folks. And then the other thing I would just say about the errata document, as Sabrina said, for those people who are using electronic versions of the REI manual, it's kind of hard to insert, but they actually have the new pages behind the document that could be inserted if you did print it, or at least saved on your desktop, so you know there are some revised pages. So that's going to be extremely important.
Thank you. So let's talk about a couple of the things that were changed in the errata document that we feel is very important and has created some questions that we have gotten. So one of the things that we've got to remember is one of the big focuses with the MDS changes was getting the resident's voice, right? And really looking at every opportunity to have the resident be able to give their insight into how they're feeling, or their perception of things. So what they have done is they have provided further clarification. So what you will see on this slide is specifically talking about page D11. And this is the coding instructions as it relates to D0160. So the total severity score needs to be updated to remove that the staff assessment of mood is conducted when the total severity score is coded as 99. So what you'll see is they have changed it. The total severity score, when it's coded as 99, do not complete the staff assessment of mood. So they're really putting that emphasis on understanding this is resident voice. So when we further go on into the mood section, that D0100, the D0100 is that question of should the resident's mood interview be conducted. In there, it is important to note that they've got, in their small little print where it says attempt to conduct the interview with all residents. So they are putting it out there again and really emphasizing this is about the resident's voice. And they're really putting forward, when we look at this, is that D0100, it really serves as that gateway item into the PHQ 2 and 9, right? And D0500, the staff assessment within the PHQ 9. So the assessor was going to complete the staff interview only when that D0100 is coded as 0. No, the assessor does not complete the staff interview based on the resident's performance during the mood interview. And that's an important piece. So this is when we talk about the significance and the importance of the accuracy of the MDS. This isn't about our perception, so what we observe of how the resident's behaving. This is about the answers that they give us. Furthermore, the resident's refusal or unwillingness to participate in the interview would result in D0100 being coded as 1 yes, and code 9, no response being entered in column 1, the symptoms present, and the assessor should proceed to item D0700, the social isolation, in the case of the resident's refusal or unwillingness to participate. So that's just some clarification on the mood component.
So I think, again, in emphasizing the tips, it's not a matter of the resident not wanting to participate in it that's going to lead you to the staff assessment. It's that gateway question, which is, are they rarely or never understood? And if that is the case, you go to the staff assessment. But otherwise, you have to follow the instructions. So
and
very important.
It's very important. And this is we included this screenshot too, because what you'll see and what's highlighted at the bottom is that October 2023, the R. And so this is where they have given us the pages, as Leanne had mentioned earlier, the pages to insert or remove the old ones and have the new ones. But if you're unable to do that because everyone's just focused on the electronic copy, totally fine. Just have this saved too. So when some of these questions come up, you know what document to be looking at. So Section O. Okay. So lots of questions on Section O. I know for those of you who were at conference, this was one of the topics that we got a lot of questions on too, and we were seeking further clarification, and we actually got right at the end there of conference. So section O, we were all caught off guard when, as it relates to capturing the therapy days and minutes, when that was removed on the assessments that were not our admission, right? So this kind of got everybody like, uh-oh, why are our therapy minutes and days being removed? And there is value. So I think that really what it was it just was an oversight in how it was done. And so there really, I don't think it was meant to be controversy. It's just my opinion. But what they have done is they have corrected their error. So they are doing good by us, right? And now we can go back and we can provide the therapy days and minutes. So I know that there's been a lot of questions about MDS coordinators now asking, for the information from October. And so, yes, provide them the information if they are making the corrections to MDSs from October to November 1st, where we were kind of not able to capture that information. So provide them the days and the minutes. But the other thing that is important here is there is some confusion, I know, that is happening in some facilities where the states have changed or transitioned from the CMI over to a nursing PDPM component for capturing what is the reimbursement there for our Medicaid residents. And so what is happening is we know MDS coordinators or administrators they're still stuck in that old traditional way that therapy really was going in some cases. They were screening and then evaluating and being placed on caseload prior to the ARD for an annual or a quarterly, and that did have an impact on their CMI. So if your state or your facility is part of that transition over to the PDPM nursing component, it is important that we are part of the education of the team to say therapy still has a value. However, therapy is not what is impacting those lower nursing categories within PDPM. That is the restorative nursing. And so to be able to explain and differentiate, but we really see this as the opportunity of partnership. Just because therapy is not that driving force of reimbursement, it doesn't mean that we have any less value. What it means is it's a partnership opportunity. And we still should be completing, screens if that is your process in your facility, because we want to make sure that we are still being proactive. And therapy is a very important piece of the puzzle when we're talking about all of, the requirements and preventing rehospitalization and preventing decline. So just toot your horns, show your value, and continue to be able to be happy that we can continue to be able to provide our therapy days and minutes.
And Sabrina, I would just add, I know we had a question when we thought that we were not doing the days and minutes on the OBRA assessments. And the question was, well, how will the states that have not converted to PDPM and are still using CMI get that information? Remember, that is still on the OSA. So whether the minutes came back on these assessments or not, they still have that within the OSA document itself, and that's where that's going to be taken from. So I just wanted to point that out.
Good point. Thank you. So another thing or another section that we've gotten questions on is, and I think this is great that we're getting questions on, and I think it's great that we are in facilities, we are being more communicative, because one of the big things when we talk about the MDS, right, this isn't, gone are the days where you can complete the MDS in silo. This truly is an interdisciplinary team conversation. And people can complete their different sections, but there still needs to be a collaborative conversation amongst the interdisciplinary team before the information is submitted to be able to capture things. So one of the questions that we're getting is that the distinction now between the continuous oxygen therapy and the intermittent. So one of the points of clarification is when you're clicking, the MDS coordinator is selecting that the oxygen was continuous. That means that that oxygen was delivered to that resident for 14 hours a day or greater. And that is going to be the key point there. And so one of the things that this is a great educational opportunity with our therapist, because we want to make sure that the therapists are documenting vitals, and we want to make sure that the therapists are documenting if the resident is on oxygen or not. Because what we're seeing in the questions that's coming up is, can the therapy documentation be included in counting that 14 hours a day or greater? And the answer is yes. So when we start looking at these different components and continue to talk about the different changes in the MDS and the value of therapy, this is one of those values. So let's document our vitals. Let's document that they're on oxygen. And let's document these key pieces to show our value and part of that interdisciplinary team.
All right. So, again, as we added some of the questions in, not we, obviously, but we keep referencing we, as they added some questions in section J related to pain and its interference on certain things, sleep, etc. One of them was related to therapy activities, and there was some question in and around what all does that include. And so they did clarify that they are talking physical, occupational, speech therapy, as well as cardiac and pulmonary therapies. So it does not include restorative nursing. So point of clarification there. And then I'll just kind of reference again the glossary section of the new RAI manual can be very helpful, and that's where these definitions can be found. So I would certainly encourage everyone to take a look at that. And I have saved it as a separate document so that it's handy on my desktop. So as Sabrina said, just reminding everyone that those states that continue to utilize the RUG system, 3, 4, whatever they're using, they are requiring that an optional state assessment, or OSA, be completed separate and distinct from the standard MDSs, specifically for the Medicaid reimbursement. And so in that OSA, only those late loss ADLs, right, that feed into the ADL score, bed mobility, eating, toilet use, and transfers are included on the OSA. And so that assessment, when done as required by a particular state, cannot be combined with any other assessment. So it's important to note that is extra work. And so we need to just be cognizant of that, as Sabrina said, as partners with our facilities, and that OSA assessment will have the full PHQ-9, not the 2 to 9 with the gateway questions being the first two. So it'll have the old school PHQ-9. Different states may or may not require that the ARD match the PPS assessment if that is happening concurrently. So that's something to be cognizant in and around. And then, we did get questions on in these states where the OSA is required, how are CNAs differentiating or keeping straight GG and G? And I would say my experience, and again, there is no one silver bullet for how to approach this, but my experiences in those states, mostly they are having the CNAs continue to document specific to Section G, and then utilizing other strategies, and we'll talk about some of those in a little bit, in and around getting the Section GG information. So again, those CNAs can document as they did prior to, specific to Section G. That doesn't mean that they can't still be asked questions, probing questions by nursing and so on and so forth, in and around how the patient performs certain tasks to collect information for Section GG. It's just specific to their documentation. Try to keep it as simple as possible. And Section GG, I think here the word just continues to come to mind is accuracy, right? It has to be accurate information. And so because GG impacts so many different things, I think that's the word that I just can't get away from. So reiterating, and I have reread the coding tips, the definitions that are on your screen right there, in and around usual performance. And I think what we need to think about, and especially on admission and discharge, is what we're trying to get is their current level, right? Their usual current level, how they came into the facility before we started trying to impact their function. And so there, there's no rule of threes, there's none of that stuff. We're not looking for best, we're not looking for worst. We are just trying to see how do they typically function within all of those tasks. And I know we all want a clearer, if this, then this, check that, and we just don't have that. So I would encourage us to think about that from the standpoint of, from a therapy perspective, as we are doing it, it's their current level, right? Like, what are they doing today? And hoping that obviously we're going to impact that going forward. And obviously nursing's looking at it from the same definition, just a little bit different strategy. And then qualified clinician, we know, is the healthcare professionals practicing within their scope. So it is an assessment. But as I talked about previously, CNAs are a wealth of information, and they can be contributory and ask questions and probing questions to come up with information in and around the patient's function. And then that prior to the benefit of interventions, again, when you think about all the things Section GG impacts, and the fact that we are doing an admission score and a discharge score on our traditional Part A patients, and really nothing in between unless you happen to have an IPA, it's literally start and finish, right? So what did we accomplish with the patient while they were with us, right? What did we accomplish? So we want to try to get that admission score before we've impacted them therapeutically. And so again, like I said, I have read and reread this, and it almost takes you a little bit in a circular motion, right? Like, not the best, not the worst. If it happens more than once, look at all of the aspects of it. Look at the different environments, look at the different sources of information. Make use of the family and the patient. Make use of all of the folks that interact with the patient to get all of that information to come up with, and I'm not implying we are doing this alone, right? This is the interdisciplinary team, and we are participating in that, but we should all be looking at all aspects of it as it relates to where we're getting the information, where the task occurred, the different environments, and all of the things. It's just not as straightforward as the rule of threes. And you'll notice in that last sentence, right, a provider may need to use the entire assessment period to obtain the resident's usual performance, but we don't have to, right? So again, when you think admission, we're trying to get what did they look like when they came in the building as quickly thereafter as possible. So you don't have to carry it out for the full 3 days. We're trying to get their admission status.
And the big thing is going to be that communication piece, right? Like you said. And I think that's where facilities are struggling, because they're looking for, as you said, just tell me how, tell me where. And this is a group effort, right? This takes a village in making that determination and utilizing everyone where that they say we can to find out their usual performance.
Absolutely. And so again, in the general coding tips, we want to avoid dashes, right? We have the activity not attempted codes, which are appropriate at times, and those should be used. And that documentation in the medical record should be used to support that coding in Section GG. It should be consistent with the clinical assessment in the medical record. And we're going to talk about that a little deeper in and around, obviously, therapy's contribution to that, nursing's contribution to that, etc. But it is an interdisciplinary assessment, and data should be coming from essentially, multiple disciplines. Now, it doesn't, one other thing I'll point out, it doesn't have to be every discipline necessarily for every task, right? I mean, it's not like you have to go nursing, CNA, therapy for every single thing, but as a collective whole, everybody should be involved in the process. And this slide is one that we included in our last presentation. But again, what should happen is everybody kind of comes to a meeting or a huddle or provides their contribution, their scores as they have identified usual performance within their realm. And then the IDT kind of walks through that, reviews it, discusses it. And ideally, that discussion is documented in the medical record to say how that collaborative interdisciplinary approach happened. And it's documented so that when you come to the actual coding scores as an IDT, again, is that going to match everyone's individual ones? Not likely, right? There's probably going to be some differences. And that's the point of the note, is to say, we took all of this information, and yes, that's all in the chart. This is what we coded as an IDT team collaboration for usual performance.
And I just want to add 2 points, right?
Yep.
A person is not a process, and a process is not a person, right? So what we are seeing and hearing is some buildings are saying, okay, restorative is going to own this. So restorative, that one restorative nurse is the one who's inputting the data, and they're relying on that person. And that might be from a data entry, who actually inputs it. That might be okay. But there's a reason why there's not a data dump. So meaning that, it's section GG is not just pulling from the CNA documentation or pulling from the restorative documentation. And that's because, to Leanne's point, we should be reviewing these during that weekly care coordination meeting or your Medicare meeting, whatever your building calls it. And we need to make sure, do those levels make sense? And I want to encourage you that if you have a building that is just doing a score, like they're saying 14 for nursing, that doesn't mean anything to the greater group within the interdisciplinary team. What is valuable is saying that level of assistance, because when you just give a general score, you might be taking out, other people who have value and have input into what they have observed or what they have, heard about that resident as well. So I want us to get away from scores, and I want us to talk about that level, because then what you're doing is you're encouraging more of an open dialogue.
Get away from the composite scores.
Yeah.
So this is a question. It's a great question, right? So a couple of things. Should section GG documentation, the actual coding in the MDS and therapy documentation, match? So I ask everybody to kind of step back and think about this. So if section GG is a part of your process where you score those tasks in an effort to contribute to the interdisciplinary collaboration for scoring section GG on the MDS, then we need to make sure we're following the definitions and the process in the RAI manual when we put those codes down. And those are our codes as we see it, right? That we're contributing to the discussion that we just referenced, where we actually come up with the interdisciplinary collaboration of coding usual performance. And so that may or may not be the therapy documentation and functional levels that you use on your evaluation and plan of care and goals, right? A lot of people have section GG, which is an aspect of their documentation for the contribution to the MDS, but our actual therapy documentation is in therapy speak. And I say that like dependent, max assist, mod assist, min assist, contact guard, standby assist, independent, modified independent, whatever scale you use, but it's our therapy speak. And so if that's the case, and our plan of care is driven by the therapy speak, then even if we do section GG coding a couple of times or multiple times throughout the episode of stay, that should tell a story from one GG coding session to the next, to the next, to the discharge, just like our therapy documentation and terminology should tell a story throughout the plan of care. But they're not necessarily going to match because they're two different scales, two different processes. So again, I think that's probably the most common scenario. But if you happen to use section GG also as your therapy evaluation, functional levels and status, and that's what you're contributing to the MDS, then that needs to follow the REI manual instructions and definitions and coding methodology throughout your therapy plan of care. Go ahead.
And what I would add to that, right, is because this can be very confusing. Yeah. Right. And we understand that. And Leanne and I had a whole long conversation on this because this is something where, again, it's a great question, but this is where we have to go back to that education with our therapist, but also understand that that education needs to happen with the CNAs and nursing staff, right? Because there are very different definitions, right? That from a CNA perspective, going from that G to that GG, we can't just assume or handing somebody a piece of paper that they're going to understand it and code it correctly, right? So this is a trust but validate, right? And we should have systems in place for our therapy teams, for all of our therapists, to make sure that they understand, are you using only GG or are you using therapy and GG? And either way, we need to make sure there's a competency that is there so that they understand and they're accurately coding so that we're not skewing the MDS or skewing our therapy levels either. So this is something where, you know, I know some teams, what they do is they have incorporated this into, you know, annual reviews, annual trainings, quarterly trainings. It's definitely important that we, from a therapy perspective, that we really understand those levels of assistance and ask some of the hard questions, right? With the changes that they have made and or clarifications to dependent, for example, are we utilizing two people truly for safety when it comes to ambulation and pushing that wheelchair behind? Or is it something that we're just doing because it's convenient or we've always done it, right? And so understanding too, are we doing it, that why behind it? Because if you've got two people and you're coding it dependent and you're walking 150 feet, does that really make sense? Right. So just having some of those clinical conversations about the understanding of the levels of assistance and the why behind them.
And again, just reiterating, if we are doing section G to contribute to the MDS, we have to follow the REI manual instructions. So that's critical. Otherwise, we're not giving valid information or accurate information. So the next couple of slides come from an article, and again, I don't know who is a member of a PACN, but they have some amazing materials, and this came from an article by Scott Heichel in and around kind of getting GG right? So he talks about the intent, right? That CMS wants that IDT approach. They want assessments coming from multiple data sources at the beginning of the stay and the end of the stay, and then within the 3 days on the other assessments, ARD in the 2 prior days. And so we're looking at what is that resident's starting point? What is their ending point? CMS is looking at, did they get better? How much better did they get? And they're coupling this with other measures, right? Medicare cost per beneficiary. I mean, there's all kinds of slicing and dicing to this. And if you think about the fact that change in self-care and change in mobility have gone away, you know, they're still looking at, and we'll get to kind of the discharge function score and all of the things, but they're still looking at the start and finish of GG and the cost of getting that increase in, hopefully increase in function. And so if anything related to this process is inaccurate or incomplete, then we've not provided a true picture of what happened. And that's the intent of this section, right? Is to get that true beginning point, ending point, and all the good stuff, hopefully in between. And so he mentions in this article, if therapy is the only source of information, is the world going to blow up? Is it catastrophic? No, but it certainly isn't following the instructions, right? It isn't showing an interdisciplinary approach. It may be skewed. I'll be honest, I've heard in my head, I think it would be skewed where we would rate them higher than maybe they were, especially at 3 a.m. But I've been challenged on that, and so either way, it could be skewed, better or worse, right? It is a limited point in time. We've done our evaluation. It's generally on that day during our evaluation, we're capturing this information. So what about the other, 23 hours and the 22 hours in the day? What about the second shift? What about the third shift? Do we need more than one day? Again, kind of the timing aspect of it. And this is where Sabrina stole my thunder, but it's actually her quote. So, if therapy isn't involved on a part A, it could happen. But certainly in the long-term care patients, it's likely that we wouldn't necessarily have them on caseload. And so if it's just deferred to us for all of the things, then a person shouldn't be a process and a process shouldn't be a person. And if we're the person, we're not going to have a backup process. So again, it's a contribution. We want to be involved. We want to do our part, but understand the limitations. And I know you guys do, but how do we get our clients to understand the disservice we may be doing? Again, multi-pronged disservice, because it impacts a lot of things if we don't do it accurately. And so, they talk about getting nursing involved in this, building GG into the nursing admission assessment, or establishing a dedicated section GG assessor. Again, that's a person, so you'd need a backup. But they talk about floor nurses and incorporating it into their documentation. CNAs can be a part of the documentation, or they can be used as an interview source. Again, it depends. Asking them when the resident comes from lying to sitting on the edge of the bed, how much assistance did they need? Kind of tell me how that looked, how that happened. You can glean some insight in and around that. And they can document. I have a client, we're kind of stepping the CNAs because they don't have an OSA. We're stepping them through the process of first understanding the GG tasks, and then we're going to modify the scoring. But in the meantime, they're being used as kind of an interview source. If you've got a lot of agency staff, depending on whether it's high on the CNA side or high on the nursing side, possibly both. If it's high on the CNA side, maybe use the floor nurses for GG. If it's high on the CNAs or on the nurses, then, utilize the CNAs. If it's both, then maybe designating certain assessors may be the better way to go. There's divvying up some of the tasks as an option across disciplines. Again, you want an interdisciplinary collaborative approach, but it's not like every item we have to check everybody was involved. We're going to say something, Sabrina?
Yeah, and one of the questions that we got was, what if the facility is saying PT has to answer these certain items and PT is not addressing those items on the evaluation? This is where you need to have that conversation with your team, to your point, that this is why this is a collaboration. This is why it's not one department. This is why they're saying, what is that usual performance? So I know that we both acknowledge this was a lot of changes, and yes, it is taking longer to complete the MDS. And I know that some of the feedback we're getting is, well, MDS coordinators and facilities are trying to find a way to make it more efficient and faster. Well, that isn't, the answer is not in GG by saying it's going to be this department only, right? It's about what is going to work. And, I love how the example that you gave with your one client, that they're slowly transitioning, because this is a change, right? And this is going to be something where you've got to validate their knowledge, and you have to also validate that the scoring is being done correctly. And even from an MDS coordinator perspective, just because you've had an MDS coordinator that's been doing it for 5 or 10 years doesn't mean that it's being done accurately. So there's a lot of boxes that they check, and sometimes, you know, their eyes go cross-eyed and they check the wrong box, or they forget to check a box. And so that is why it is so important to have that collaboration, but it can't just be that it's one person, right? And if they're saying PT has to do X or PT has to do Y, it's okay to push back and to say, you know, that's not appropriate with all patients. And so, you know, and offer our services. Well, not necessarily Leanne and my service. You could offer Leanne and my services, but offer our services from a therapy, you know, perspective in helping in that education, because a lot of this is coming from just being overwhelmed. And we understand that. And so this is really a great time to truly partner and to show your value with those facilities, because this is overwhelming and this is a huge change, and people are looking for the answer and help at the end of the day.
And the note that documents kind of that collaboration can be as simple as, you know, based on the sources of information from the nurse assessment, interviews with the CNAs, and the therapy input, this team identified the following as usual performance within the assessment window. And so it doesn't have to be long drawn out, and it's just identifying who was involved, what documentation or what sources of information you're using, and that it was a collaborative kind of powwow, right? So, all right. And so we had some questions come up about some other information specific to range of motion and, you know, in and around, you know, what we collect in therapy and this. The first thing I would just say is, obviously, the range of motion question is pretty broad, right? It's like one side, no side, or one side, both sides, or no impairment. And it's literally, it's a limitation that interferes with their daily functions, right? Or place the resident at risk for injury. So, you know, I guess my initial thought is, do we really need to be doing this, or couldn't this be through the nursing assessment? But if we are, I guess my thought process is, you know, if we're looking at range of motion in our evaluations generally, we probably have more information than what's being asked here, and you should be able to complete that if you're being asked to do so. Again, that's between you and your client. And then, you know, in and around where tub shower transfer lands within the items, as well as personal hygiene. And I would just say, remember, those are not GG items that flow into PDPM or flow into, and they're not on just the Med A admission assessment. Those are the quarterlies and so on and so forth. So again, just if those are ones you're being asked to contribute to, the flexibility is there in the EMR system for therapy to address those, is my understanding. So,
and I think it's a really good point of they're not specific items that have an impact on the nursing GG or the PTOT GG, but it doesn't devalue them, right? No. And so that's, I think, one of the other things where we've heard that facilities are saying, well, we're only going to focus on the items that impact reimbursement. Well, that's a problem too. Like that's not the correct answer. Yes, it's important to have those ones coded accurately, but as we've been talking about, having that full picture, right? Because it touches so many things, the overall accuracy of it. But I think, again, it's being overwhelmed and the G merging in with the GG, and people are everyone's just confused, right? There's a lot of confusion out there. So again, an opportunity to say, these are the items that impact reimbursement. These items do not, but this is why these are still valuable. And also to say, like, to the functional limitation piece, this is why this could be done by the restorative aid or the MDS coordinator or the aid on fill in the blank.
Right. Yeah. And if you're doing a skin assessment, I'm thinking you're probably moving their arms around a little bit to look, right? And so, just looking at the whole, kind of the whole process. And then the question came in and around, what if we have, social services is doing the BIMS and the PHQ, but we also have therapy participating and doing them as well. So I don't know that there's a stellar answer to. I guess my initial thought is that could be confusing, to have both do both assessments on all patients. When you just think about the BIMS and BedSoc Blue, how many times there's got to be some learning if they're being asked that and it's repetitively given. And so I think there's some risk in and around how do if you do how do you choose, and is it going to appear as if you're kind of looking for the best score as it relates to whatever that may be, right? Your PDPM reimbursement or whatever. So how you would come to the conclusion of coding with multiple disciplines doing these tests, to me, just kind of clouds it up a little bit. But I don't know that there's a silver bullet.
Yeah, and to add to that, right? This is also what is important. I would highlight is, again, the person who is completing this, to make sure that they understand, right? And there's some very specific now instructions in the REI manual that states if the person that is completing it, right, if they are not able to, read it so the person can understand, right, if they can't articulate it, right, that should be done by somebody else then, right? So there is a reason behind the questions. And also, again, this isn't a race to get these done as fast as possible, right? This is these questions and a lot of the interview questions, they're quite personal. And so this is about accuracy for reimbursement and accuracy for the care planning. And one of the things that I would just like to put out there is, with the change from the PHQ-9 to the PHQ-229, there is a possibility that there's going to be changes within the coding, because now it's 2 questions versus 9. And did we train everyone on how to administer and what the differences mean? But does your facility have a system in place that if somebody was scoring as a 20 last quarter and now they're a 0, are we just accepting that and moving forward? Or is everybody going like, whoa, no, Sally still is crying and she is very depressed, so something is wrong, and taking that as an educational opportunity to make sure we're accurately coding and care planning to that.
And I would add on the other side of that, from a BIMS perspective, I know I have a friend of mine as speech path in a facility local here, and they do the slums, right? And so she does look and see what they got on the BIMS, and then it may create some kind of conversation in and around, okay, what really is happening with this resident? But she's moving forward with it, obviously her test, and certainly if that indicates the need for interventions, they're moving forward with that. But to your point, Sabrina, it may bring to light some competency issues, or the patient just was in a different place at that point, and who knows, and maybe we need to dig into that a little bit. If they were just transitioned over from acute, or there's so many questions we can ask in and around when that BIMS occurred. So I think it's important to look at all aspects of that. But if you're consistently multiple disciplines doing these, I would challenge you to think about why. And then the discharge function measure. This is, again, one of those that has a lot of tentacles, right? So remember, this is going to replace that change in self-care and change in mobility. There's an observed discharge function score, and then an expected, which is a calculation, and CMS has been forthright with the calculation, although you have to have a PhD in mathematics to figure it out. I'm not aware that any EHRs have integrated that into their systems yet. That would be awesome if a PCC or Matrix or someone could do that. So the question was, how are we going to know what our target is? I don't know the answer to that until after you get the report, right? But understanding that expected discharge function measure is looked it's a regression equation. There's risk adjustments involved, age, clinical conditions, etc. But they are looking at, as they develop the expected score, they're looking at the admission scores. So again, did we get GG right for the admission usual performance or accurate? That's going to play a role into the discharge function measure and the expected measure. And so control what you can control, which is accurate information on both the admission and the discharge. And we'll see if anybody can integrate this into their system. I'm not aware that that has happened yet. So we don't necessarily know what the target is. And I'm not clear on when we get the report if we're just going to be told we didn't make it, or if we're going to be given the score that was expected and be able to compare. I honestly don't know that. But those 11 items that feed into that, again, are not the same as the PTOT function score. They're not the same as the nursing function score. Every one of those lists is a little bit different. So it speaks to accuracy, accuracy, accuracy. And you really can't try to play that, because the impact that these scores have on the various things are not the same, right? They're not related necessarily. Sometimes they're inversely related. So it's more will be revealed in and around this. Anything you want to add to that?
No, we wish. I mean, I know people want the magical answer, but just more to come.
Did we get any other questions?
We did not.
Does anybody have any other questions? I will say, you know, we put some of the resources, references on this page, in and around the function score technical report and the IKEys. That article from Apakin, again, if you belong there, the QTSO memo in regards to the quality measures. So, but if anybody, if there's something that for whatever reason we didn't answer, or you haven't asked or want to ask separately, please. Oh, how long do you expect the long-term QMs on function mobility will be frozen? Hold on. So wasn't it getting the Q4 information?
And I'm right there.
Right. So it's my understanding that they're getting they'll be gathering the Q4 data. And it'll be coming into play starting in Q1, right?
Mm-hmm.
We'll follow up and verify that. I know it's an anonymous person, but if you could let us or let Christy know who that is.
And it's because they had to, there was changes, right? In the data being collected. So they had to, you have to change the algorithm, yes, for lack of a better way to say it, right? You have to, like, the G feeding into those and the G no longer exist.
Right. And the conversion over to GG. So got it. Thank you. What else?
And we know that there's going to continue to be questions. Unfortunately, Leanne and I feel that there is going to continue to be erratas, perhaps, and more clarification. So as what we put out there, you know, on our very first part one of this, right? If you have more questions, if you, please reach out. You know, we can host another webinar if there's a lot of questions like we had for today in the request. We can answer them on town halls. You know, Leanne and I are available to answer any questions if you want to just send us an email. You know, this definitely takes a narrow village to get through these changes. And, you know, we are fingers crossed the grouper will be fixed soon and all will be right in the world. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.